Good morning to you, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. So we've talked an awful lot about Peter Mandelson today, rather less so about Andrew, but girls.
This is the latest headline story of the emails that reignited scrutiny of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, years after Epstein's 2008 conviction, including reported holiday cards that contained photographs of Andrew's own daughters. Today's focus is exactly what those newly released files are reported to show, what remains contested, and why these emails have reopened a scandal many believed had already reached its limit. At the centre of this controversy sits Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and the long shadow cast by his association with Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein's conviction in Florida for soliciting a minor for prostitution. January 2026 marked the moment this story flared up again, when the US Department of Justice released a vast new tranche of Epstein-related material under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. More than 3 million pages of documents were made public, along with thousands of videos and images, and the scale alone ensured that individual revelations would keep emerging for weeks.
A lot of these Epstein files do actually focus on Andrew and, of course, Sarah Ferguson's just extensive contact with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted of soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution while he was in prison.
Within that enormous release, a specific set of emails drew immediate attention, and that is where this story sharpens. Multiple outlets reported that the files included holiday greeting emails sent by Andrew to Epstein in 2011 and 2012, years after the 2008 conviction that had already made Epstein notorious worldwide. Those greetings were described as containing photographs of Andrew's daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, a detail that pushed public reaction from disbelief into outright anger. The reporting makes clear that while the existence of the greetings has been widely cited, the descriptions of the photographs and messages rely on press accounts rather than independent public exhibits. Timing is the hinge on which this entire story turns. Epstein's conviction took place in 2008, and by that point, his name was inseparable from sexual crime and abuse. According to People magazine and similar outlets, one reported email dated December 21st, 2011, was sent from an address identified as HRH, the Duke of York, and it allegedly included photographs of Beatrice and Eugenie alongside a holiday message reading, "Wishing you much joy and happiness at this time and for the year ahead."
After being released from prison, contact since then, and the expectation of exchange of, shall we say, help to each other. What do you make of where Prince Andrew, ex-Prince Andrew and Fergie are right now? She's leaving all the charities, they're being closed down. He's out of his lodge, he's lost his title, he's lost his HRH.
Another card was reported on December 20th, 2012, again including photographs and the same message, which meant contact continued at least 4 years after the conviction. So, Andrew sent these photos well after his conviction, and after he said he ended their friendship. The outrage surrounding these reported cards cannot be separated from Andrew's own public statements. In a 2019 BBC Newsnight interview, Andrew stated that he visited Epstein in December 2010 solely to end their friendship, explaining that continued association would be inappropriate following the conviction. That claim has been replayed repeatedly over the years, and it has become a benchmark against which all later revelations are measured. What changed in January 2026 was the release of emails from 2010 that appeared to show a warmer, more familiar tone than Andrew's later account suggested. Among those reported emails was an exchange in which Epstein wrote about arranging a meeting with what he described as a 26-year-old Russian woman. In the same thread, the correspondent described as the Duke is quoted asking, "How are you? Good to be free?" With Epstein replying, "Great to be free of many things." Those lines, drawn from media reporting on the DOJ release, added weight to claims that contact between the two men continued beyond what Andrew later described publicly. And this is where the holiday cards take on added meaning.
Thought essentially he had now gone off into the wilderness, sent into exile on Marsh Farm, this dilapidated cottage on the Sandringham estate, to live out his days in obscurity. He must have thought the worst was over, and he's now back in the centre of the storm.
If Andrew maintained friendly correspondence in 2011 and 2012, complete with seasonal greetings and family photographs, it places his relationship with Epstein well beyond the point at which he told the public it had ended. That contradiction has been at the heart of renewed criticism, not only from commentators, but from a public that has followed this story for more than a decade. The wider DOJ release has its own controversies, which matter because they shape how these revelations are understood. The Department of Justice acknowledged releasing more than 3 million pages, yet reporting indicates that more than 6 million pages were initially identified as potentially relevant. Victim advocates and some lawmakers have criticised the process, arguing that key materials remain withheld or heavily redacted, and that the rollout itself caused harm. That criticism intensified after the Associated Press reported that identifying information for victims had been inadvertently exposed. An agreement was later reached to protect the identities of nearly 100 women affected by those disclosures, which meant the release became a story not only about transparency, but also about institutional failure and survivor protection. Epstein's conviction came in 2008. Andrew later said he cut ties. New files were released in January 2026. Those files reportedly show contact continuing years later, including holiday greetings in 2011 and 2012. Each of those points is established through reporting, and together they form the reason this story refuses to fade. This controversy did not appear out of nowhere, and it is unlikely to disappear quietly. It has sharpened because it relies on documents, dates, and correspondence rather than rumour alone. And it has sharpened because it directly challenges a version of events Andrew himself placed on the public record. Recent headlines have also focused heavily on Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's former wife, after the new documents surfaced.
To Emily Maitlis about being an honourable gentleman and trying to break things off with Epstein, we can see quite clearly he was lying through his teeth. He has maintained that relationship, and also now, of course, as wasn't the case before, his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson absolutely in the mire as well with these fawning emails.
Emails in the latest release show Ferguson maintained contact with Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction, even making remarks about her daughter, Princess Eugenie, in a 2010 message when Eugenie was 19 years old. In that exchange, Ferguson appears to have mentioned her daughter returning from what was described as a shagging weekend, a crude detail that has understandably grabbed attention and sparked fresh waves of criticism in both UK and US media. Alongside the emailed comments, Ferguson's broader relationship with Epstein has come under scrutiny, with one report showing her suggesting a woman Epstein might meet, and another showing her congratulating him on a supposed baby boy, an idea later denied by Epstein's brother. Her charity, Sarah's Trust, announced it will close for the foreseeable future, a decision described as being in discussion for months, but coming amid the fallout from the newly publicised files. These revelations have kept public focus on Ferguson, just as the controversy around Andrew's own correspondence with Epstein continues to unfold. Which brings everything back to the central issue. This is a story of the emails that reopened a scandal many believed had already reached its conclusion, and why reported holiday cards sent years after a conviction continue to provoke anger, disbelief, and questions that remain unanswered. Now, what do you think of these photos? Is this a disturbing revelation, or simply friends sharing their life? Leave me a note in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more royal news.